Hey, what's going on, you guys? Welcome to the second episode of 15 Minutes with Dad Healing series. My name is Lyric Williams, and you guys are healing with me. We are going through a journey. And if you haven't checked out those last two episodes, make sure you go and check those guys out. On YouTube, you can hit the link above. Um, but we are talking about my recent diagnosis. We're talking about the journey ahead. We're going to be talking about how it impacts my life, the trauma that has ensued that brought that kind of thing together. I'm not basing my healing off of a diagnosis, but I'm telling you that I didn't really understand who I was until I went through understanding the multiple layers of bipolar no sorry borderline personality disorder. I didn't really understand myself, and it's like I have learned so much about why I do what I do, and why, like, the way that I feel is not randomly and far-fetched. And so this is my healing journey. Last episode I talked about, by borderline personality disorder, and um how I discovered it and how I accepted it, and what the journey looks like moving forward. Today, let's dive in into where it kind of stems from, right? Like, what did I experience, and go in a couple layers. It's gonna be difficult for me, so bear with me, y'all. Um, so there was something I mentioned in last episode that I was in an argument with my girlfriend, and I understood. I had this epiphany mid argument, or just explain. I wasn't arguing at the time. I was explaining at what point in the events that I feel that I felt the worst, or I felt like it triggered me or set me off or something like that. And it like I said, it stemmed from me feeling like, okay, I don't deserve love. I don't deserve to be loved. Why didn't I deserve to be loved? Because I sent money to the wrong Alma, and I felt like I didn't deserve to be loved. I made a mistake. I had this perfectionism thing that was in my mind, that I have to be perfect, or I have to be a certain type of way in order to be loved. Now, let's name that thing. This is another layer inside of BPD, right? There's another layer, this thing called people pleasing, right? It's gonna be the album of the name of the cover album I'm working on, but people pleasing, and that's essentially what my entire life makes up, right? I negate my needs in any given moment. Like, it could be, I don't set boundaries. I do all these things because I feel like or I don't do things because I feel like if I do them, or if I don't do them, then I'll lose love, or I'll lose care, or somebody will stop caring for me. And it sounds like, oh, this dude weak, you know what I'm saying? But, like, in let me explain it a little bit deeper. Like, let's say I have, and this stuff, it impacts many different parts of my life, right? So, like, it's so complex because it impacts the success, the failure, the lack of effort, the lack of interest, or the negation of completing things, or me not voicing my needs, having needs but not voicing them. And so when we're talking about people pleasing, research that more so that you can be on the same page as me. But let's talk more about what, like, basically it's negating needs, right? Like, just give it a broad scope. It's negating needs, or not being able to set boundaries, and accepting um, less than interactions with people because I don't want to lose love. I don't want to feel abandoned. And this people pleasing thing has, let's say, impacted my creativity. I would start many projects. I have so much music that I've started, but I've never put it out. You've never heard of it because I've never put it out. Or I've started projects, like I wanted to do some music shows, I want to do some videos, I want to do this stuff, but I never did it because I feared that people would, like, I was thinking about how everybody else would react to what it is that I'm saying, and their voices sound so much louder than mine. And I'm going to go back into my past and really explain that. But just kind of trying to set a precedent here that a lot of my success also came from this people pleasing slash borderline personality disorder. So the idea is that I want to have such a high quality because I fear that if I do something wrong or if I do something bad, I will get fired, right? I will lose my job. I won't be able to feed my family because I made one mistake. And I still right today don't allow myself to make mistakes at work. Like I want the details of everything, and I want to take everything. I want to make sure meticulously every detail. And if it can't work out, I'm going to communicate that ahead of time, which also leaves me in the weeds of analyzing things so much so that some things don't get completed, right? So over time, when I discuss my trauma, guys, I'm being vulnerable to you all, and it's hard for me to do this, but I'm forcing myself to do it in a way because I feel like it's going to be helpful for me and other people as well. But like the level of success that I've accomplished in my life, even with the traumatic experience I've had as a childhood, in my childhood, it's because of this disorder that I am successful. And I'm going to tell you why after I talk about the trauma. So let's get into what are some situations that I've experienced in my life that were traumatic. And some of this stuff I'm going to talk about my family. I have not talked to my family about some of these things I'm going to talk about. I may have talked to my family about, but I only give it in stints. I'm going to give you guys the details, and hopefully they're going to watch it. And I'm going to talk to them before this airs, something like that. I'm going to figure this whole thing out. But so growing up, my family is very unorthodox. Um, and I love my family. I love my brothers, my sisters, my mom, my grandparents, all of it. I love my family for who they are, and I've learned to accept everything that comes along with family, and I love them to the dearest of my heart. But we're about to get into this, and this is not to talk bad about anybody. So if anybody feels bad, and as you can see, people pleasing coming in, trying to give some disclaimers before I say what I say. So I grew up with my grandmother, my late grandmother, and my grandmother took care of me roughly till I was about 15, 14, 15, maybe 16, somewhere in there. I lost track of time. And then I moved back with my mom, and I may have moved with my mom different stints throughout my life, once or twice, as a baby, and then again as an elementary kid. So my mom, how do I lay this out? My mom had me at a very young age, and she is a product of negligence. She is a product of abandonment as well. Um, and not to say that my mom abandoned me, but she was 15 when she had me. My grandmother basically just took me. My mom's mom just took me, and so I can remember as early as 4 or 5 my interactions with my grandmother. And my grandmother is suffered from addiction. She was at the helm of the crack epidemic, and so she was an addict of that stuff. And so my mom, in her early childhood, experienced all that came along with um, an addict of crack. And I was a product of the end of her crack usage slash withdrawal slash covering addiction to something else. And so there's very very vivid moments in my life that I can remember as early as 4 and 5. Um, but to kind of like give you a landscape, my grandmother was very, very abusive. But I loved her with everything in me. Um, I loved her, and but she was emotionally dis disoriented most of the time. And I didn't know as a child, right? There were times when, like, if I didn't clean up right, she would wake me up. Like, if I left a straw from a broomstick, and I always use this as an example because I remember so vividly. I'm on the top of the bunk bed. She would pull me by my ears off the top of the bunk bed and put my face where the straw is, or if there's dirt on the floor, or if there's a dirty dish, she'll put my face in the dirty dish and smack me behind my head, hit me with whatever's in her hand. I felt like I could not do anything right. I felt like there was nothing that I could do right. I mean, I got whoopings almost every day, and if I didn't get a whooping, I was very excited. It was like a celebration almost. Like I felt like I did something so well, and I tried to imitate that when I found out, okay, this can keep me from getting a whooping, but it did not. Right. And looking back on my life, my grandmother was using for a large part of my life. And when she got off of crack, I think crack almost killed her when I was 9, because there was a moment when we used to go to UTMB in Galveston. We used to go to the hospital almost like at least two or three times a month. And we would travel to Galveston, and it was used as a, like, oh, this is a fishing trip. Like they'll take us from school, and then we'll go to Galveston and fish maybe a bit, but it was to go to the doctor. And she was about to die because they told her she only had like a few months, like 6 to 8 months to live if she keep on that same track. So I think she stopped it, and then she had to go through the withdrawals. And in this period, when I say she never left, there was multiple periods in my life where she never left her bed, and she didn't leave her bed at all for months on end. She would probably get up to pee, and sometimes she didn't because she had like a pot that she can use in her room. Um, but I became the caregiver, and I took care of her hand and foot for years, right? And everything that I did was in line with not making her more sick. And I mean, I'm talking that's cleaning the entire house, doing laundry for everybody, feeding my brothers and sisters, still while trying to be a child and navigating the whole childhood stuff. Um, we lived under the poverty line. So, like, when I say my house was roach infested all my life, flea infested all my life, like, I don't remember a time when I lived in a home that wasn't roach or flea infested. And at this age, I'm like, yo, that's crazy. That blows my mind that was a norm for our life, right? Um, but aside from that, right? That's like the atrocious thing. Let's talk about generationally how my grandmother was, that also tied into that, right? So, like, and a lot of you may can relate to this part, that in that time frame, like in that era, early 90s, 80s, in that time, the way that our parents or our grandparents raised us was we didn't have a voice, right? We didn't have a voice. We couldn't speak out of line, couldn't speak out of term. If grown folks talking, shut your mouth. Like, if they say something, you don't talk until, till spoken to, that whole 9 yards. But for me, it was like I couldn't voice my needs. I could never have a conversation with my grandmother and say, hey, Granny, like, can you stop hitting me for so much? Or like, can you stop? Like, I was afraid that when she scratched her head, I would duck no matter where I was. And she'd be like, don't be acting like I beat you. I'm like, yo, but you really do, you know? And, yo, this is hard for me to talk about. I don't know if y'all can see me kind of.